Mrs. Blake, huh? Funny, I thought I married a Sullivan.
The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered onto the concrete floor of Patterson's auto repair. I'd been staring at the same bolt for 10 minutes, my mind somewhere else entirely, somewhere dark. "Earth to Jake?" called Tony from under the hood of a '98 Camry. "You planning to fix that transmission or just sweet talk it?" I picked up the wrench, wiping my hands on my coveralls. "Just thinking, dangerous territory for a married man," Tony chuckled. "What's eating you?" I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not about the strange feeling that had been gnawing at my gut for weeks. The way my wife Sarah had started humming in the shower again, the way she'd begun caring about her appearance after years of sweatpants and messy buns, the way our 15-year-old daughter Emma had been acting weird at dinner. "Nothing," I lied. "Just tired." Tony emerged from under the hood, his weathered face skeptical. "Jake Sullivan, I've known you since high school. You get that same look when you're working on a puzzle. What puzzle you working on now?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Working late again? Don't wait up. Love you. Third time this week." "See you tomorrow, Tony," I said, already heading for the door. The drive home through our neighborhood felt different somehow. The same split-level houses, the same cracked sidewalks, but everything seemed slightly off-kilter. Like when you're coming down with the flu and the world looks too bright, too sharp. Our house sat at the end of Maple Street, a modest two-story with blue shutters that Sarah had insisted on painting last spring. Her silver Honda wasn't in the driveway. Emma was sprawled on the living room couch, textbooks scattered around her like fallen leaves. She looked up when I walked in, and something flickered across her face. Guilt? Fear? "Hey, kiddo. How was school?" "Fine." She went back to her book, but I caught her sneaking glances at me. "Your mom working late again?" Emma's shoulders tensed. "Yeah. She's got that big presentation tomorrow." Sarah worked as a substitute administrator at Emma's high school. It was good work, steady pay, but she'd never mentioned any presentations before. I sat down in my recliner, studying my daughter. Emma had Sarah's blonde hair and delicate features, but she'd inherited my stubborn streak and my tendency to overthink everything. "Em, can I ask you something?" "Sure, Dad. You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" "I mean, if you knew something that might hurt me, but I needed to know it anyway." Emma's book fell from her hands. She stared at me with wide eyes, and I saw the truth written all over her face. She knew something. Something she didn't want to tell me. "Dad, Never mind," I said quickly. "Forget I asked." But I couldn't forget. And judging by the way Emma kept staring at me for the rest of the evening, neither could she. Sarah came home at 11:30, smelling like wine and expensive cologne. Not her cologne. "How was the presentation prep?" I asked from the couch, where I'd been pretending to watch the news. "Exhausting," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm going to shower." I listened to the water running upstairs and tried to remember the last time my wife had looked me in the eye when she spoke. The next morning, Emma was quiet over breakfast. She picked at her cereal, shooting nervous glances between me and Sarah. My wife, meanwhile, was practically glowing. She'd put on makeup, done her hair, and chosen a dress that showed off legs I hadn't seen in months. "Big day today?" I asked. "Just the usual," Sarah said, checking her phone. "Oh, Emma, don't forget you have that conference with Mr. Blake today." Emma's spoon clattered into her bowl. "What conference?" "Parent-teacher conference, remember? I told you last week." I frowned. "Since when do we have parent-teacher conferences in October?" "It's just a check-in," Sarah said quickly. "Nothing formal." Emma was staring at her mother with something that looked like panic. "Mom, maybe we should get going," Sarah interrupted. "Don't want to be late." After they left, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. Emma's reaction to the conference, Sarah's evasiveness, the cologne I'd smelled last night. I called in sick to work and drove to the high school. Westfield High was a sprawling brick building that had been built in the '70s and showed its age. I parked across the street and waited, feeling like a stalker. But I had to know. At 10:15, I saw Sarah's Honda pull into the faculty parking lot. She got out, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the building. Nothing unusual there. But then, I saw him. He was waiting by the side entrance, tall and lean, with dark hair and the kind of easy smile that women seem to love. He was young, maybe 35, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt that probably cost more than I made in a week. Sarah walked straight to him. They talked for a moment, and then she touched his arm. Just a brief touch, but it sent ice through my veins. They disappeared into the building together. I sat in my truck for another hour, mind racing. Who was he? A teacher, obviously. But which one? And what was his relationship with my wife? That evening, I tried to act normal. Emma seemed relieved that I wasn't asking any more difficult questions, and Sarah was chattier than she'd been in months. How did the conference go? I asked during dinner. Oh, it was fine, Sarah said. Emma's doing well in all her classes, especially English. Emma choked on her soda. Mom, what? Sarah looked genuinely confused. Nothing, Emma muttered. I filed that away for later. English. After dinner, I helped Emma with her homework while Sarah graded papers in the living room. Or at least she was pretending to grade papers. Every few minutes, her phone would buzz and she'd smile at the screen. Dad, Emma said quietly, glancing toward the living room. Can I talk to you? Of course. She hesitated, chewing her lip. If you found out something about someone you loved, something that would hurt them, would you tell them? My heart stopped. What kind of something? I mean, hypothetically. If telling the truth would destroy everything, but not telling the truth meant living with a lie forever. I set down her math book and looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was torn apart inside, I could see it. Emma, what's going on? She opened her mouth and closed it, shook her head. Nothing, just wondering. But I knew. God help me, I knew. Truth, I said quietly. Always truth. Even when it hurts, Emma nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. I hope so, Dad. I really hope so. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah touching that man's arm. The easy familiarity of it. The way she'd smiled at him. At 3 in the morning, I gave up and went downstairs to make coffee. Sarah's purse was sitting on the kitchen counter, and before I could stop myself, I was looking through it. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, a ticket stub from a movie we hadn't seen together, and at the bottom, underneath her wallet, a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a note, written in masculine handwriting. Can't wait for tonight. Same place as always. D. D. The English teacher, probably. I put the note back where I'd found it and sat at the kitchen table, staring into my coffee cup. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of trust, of partnership, of building a life together, gone. The rational part of my brain knew I should confront her, demand an explanation. But another part of me, the part that had spent years fixing broken engines and solving mechanical puzzles, wanted to understand the whole picture first. How long had this been going on? How serious was it? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? I was still sitting there when Sarah came downstairs at 6:30, already dressed for work. You're up early, she said, pouring herself coffee. Couldn't sleep. She didn't ask why. The old Sarah would have asked why. I've got another late meeting tonight, she said, not looking at me. Don't know when I'll be home. What kind of meeting? Just school stuff, budget committee. Another lie. I could hear it in her voice, see it in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. Sarah, I said carefully, are we okay? I mean, us? Our marriage? She froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips. What kind of question is that? An honest one? She forced a laugh. Of course we're okay, Jake. Why wouldn't we be? Because you're cheating on me, I thought. Because you're lying to my face. Because our daughter knows and it's tearing her apart. No reason, I said, just checking. After she left, I called Tony. I need a favor, I said when he answered. Name it. I need you to cover for me today, and maybe for a few more days. Jake, what's going on? I took a deep breath. I think Sarah's having an affair. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, damn, brother, I'm sorry. I need to be sure before I do anything. I need to know who he is, how long it's been going on, how serious it is. You want me to help you follow her? No. I want you to cover for me while I do some investigating on my own. Tony was quiet for a moment. You sure about this, Jake? Some things, once you know them, you can't unknow them. I already know, I said. I just need proof. All right, but Jake, when this is over, we're going to have a long talk about what comes next. Yeah, I said. We will. I spent the morning at the public library, using their computers to research Westfield High's faculty directory. It didn't take long to find him. David Blake, English teacher, 34 years old, divorced, no kids. I stared at his photo on the school website. He was handsome in an intellectual way, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The kind of man who probably quoted poetry and discussed literature over wine. Everything I wasn't. The more I read about him, the angrier I got. He'd won teaching awards, he coached the debate team, students loved him, parents respected him, and he was sleeping with my wife. I printed out his information and drove to the school. If I was going to confront this situation, I needed to know my enemy. I parked across from Westfield High and waited. At 3:15, the final bell rang, and students began streaming out of the building. I watched for Emma, but didn't see her. She probably had an after-school activity. At 3:30, David Blake emerged from the building. Up close, he was even more impressive than his photo suggested. Tall, confident, with the easy stride of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. He carried a leather messenger bag and wore wire-rimmed glasses that made him look scholarly. He got into a blue Subaru and drove away. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. He didn't go far, just to a coffee shop downtown called the Daily Grind. I parked down the street and watched as he went inside, ordered something, and sat down at a corner table with a stack of papers. Grading, probably, being a dedicated teacher. I was about to leave when I saw Sarah's Honda pull into the parking lot. My wife got out, looked around nervously, and hurried into the coffee shop. Through the window, I watched her sit down across from Blake. He reached across the table and took her hand. They sat like that for almost an hour, talking quietly, touching hands, looking at each other like teenagers in love. It was intimate in a way that made my chest ache. When they finally stood up to leave, Blake kissed her, not a passionate kiss, but soft and tender. The kind of kiss that spoke of deep affection and shared secrets. The kind of kiss Sarah and I hadn't shared in years. I followed them to the parking lot, staying low in my seat. They talked by their cars for a few more minutes, then Sarah got in her Honda and drove away. Blake watched her go, smiling. I wanted to get out of my truck and confront him right there. Demand to know how long he'd been sleeping with my wife. Ask him if he knew about Emma, about our 20-year marriage, about the life he was helping to destroy. But I didn't. Because I wasn't ready yet. I didn't have a plan. That night, Sarah came home at her usual time, acting like nothing had happened. She made dinner, helped Emma with homework, and curled up next to me on the couch to watch a movie. It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't seen her with Blake that afternoon, I might have convinced myself I was imagining things. "Jake," she said during a commercial break, "do you ever think about our future? What we want to do when Emma goes to college?" "Sometimes," I said carefully. "Why?" "I don't know. I've just been thinking lately that maybe we need to shake things up. Try something new." "Like what?" She was quiet for a moment. "I don't know yet. But I feel like I'm changing, you know? Like I'm becoming someone different." I stared at the television screen, fighting the urge to scream. She was right. She was changing. She was becoming someone who could lie to my face and sleep in my bed after spending the afternoon with another man. "Change can be good," I said. "Can it?" She looked at me with something that might have been hope. "Even if it means letting go of things that used to matter?" "Depends on what you're letting go of." She didn't answer, but I felt her stiffen beside me. We watched the rest of the movie in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Later, as we got ready for bed, I studied my wife in the bathroom mirror. She was still beautiful at 35, with blonde hair that caught the light and blue eyes that had once looked at me the way they now looked at David Blake. "Sarah," I said, "do you love me?" She paused in the middle of brushing her teeth. Our eyes met in the mirror. "Of course I love you, Jake. What a silly question." But she said it too quickly, too automatically, like she'd been practicing the words. The next few days passed in a blur of surveillance and sleepless nights. I followed Sarah when I could, learning the patterns of her affair. Coffee at the Daily Grind on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Lunch at a restaurant across town on Wednesdays. And on Friday afternoons, they disappeared for hours. I was losing weight, losing sleep, losing my mind. But I was gaining something too. Knowledge, information, power. Emma knew something was wrong with me. She'd started watching me the same way I'd been watching Sarah, with worry and confusion. "Dad? Are you sick?" she asked one morning over breakfast. "Just tired, sweetheart." "Maybe you should see a doctor." Sarah looked up from her phone. "He's fine, Emma. Your father's always been a worrier." That stung. 20 years ago, Sarah had loved my careful, methodical approach to problems. She'd said it made her feel safe. Now it just seemed to annoy her. After they left for school, I made a decision. It was time to get some professional help. I drove to the other side of town, to a strip mall that housed a private investigation agency called Hartley and Associates. The office was small and cluttered, with a middle-aged woman behind the desk and the smell of stale coffee in the air. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. "I need to hire an investigator." She studied me for a moment, probably seeing the desperation I was trying to hide. "Marital problems?" "Yeah. I'm Linda Hartley, and you are?" "Jake Sullivan." She gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Tell me what's going on, Jake." I told her everything. The suspicious behavior, the coffee shop meetings, the lies. Linda listened without judgment, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked when I finished. "I don't know. Weeks? Months? And what do you want from me?" "Proof. Documentation. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I make any decisions." Linda nodded. "I can do that, but Jake, I have to ask, what are you planning to do with this information once you have it?" "I don't know yet." "Well, figure it out. Because once you open this door, you can't close it again." She quoted me a price that made me wince. 2 days' pay for photographic evidence of my wife's betrayal. "Do it," I said. "I'll need a retainer." I wrote her a check, my hands shaking slightly. There was no going back now. "I'll have something for you by Monday," Linda said. "Maybe sooner if they're as careless as you say they are." Careless. That was the word that stuck with me as I drove home. Sarah and Blake were being careless because they didn't think anyone was watching. They didn't think I was smart enough to figure it out. They were wrong. That evening, I tried to act normal around Sarah and Emma. We had dinner, watched television, made small talk about work and school. But underneath it all, I was studying my wife like a suspect in an interrogation room. How long had she been lying to me? How many times had she looked me in the eye and lied? "Jake," Sarah said suddenly, "you're staring at me." "Sorry." "Just thinking." "About what?" "Work stuff." She accepted the lie easily, probably because she was so used to telling them herself. After Emma went to bed, Sarah and I sat in the living room with our respective books. But I wasn't reading. I was watching her, looking for tells, for signs of guilt or deception. "I'm going to bed," she announced around 10 o'clock. "I'll be up in a few minutes." But I didn't go up. I sat in my chair, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man who was destroying my marriage. David Blake, with his leather messenger bag and his wire-rimmed glasses and his easy charm. What did he have that I didn't? Education? Sophistication? Youth? Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe he just had the novelty of being someone new. Linda called me Saturday morning. "I've got what you need," she said. "Can you come in?" I told Sarah I was going to run errands and drove to the strip mall. Linda was waiting with a manila envelope. "I'm sorry, Jake," she said, handing it to me. "I really am." Inside were photographs. Sarah and Blake holding hands at the daily grind. Sarah and Blake kissing in the parking lot. Sarah and Blake going into a motel on the other side of town. The last photo showed them coming out of the motel room 3 hours later, Blake's arm around Sarah's waist. I stared at the images until they blurred. 20 years of marriage, reduced to a stack of 8 by 10 photographs. "There's more," Linda said gently. She handed me a second envelope. Inside were credit card statements showing charges at restaurants, hotels, and stores I didn't recognize. Phone records showing hundreds of text messages between Sarah and a number registered to David Blake. "How long?" I asked. "Based on the phone records? About 4 months?" 4 months. Sarah had been cheating on me for 4 months, and I'd been too stupid to see it. "Jake, what are you going to do?" I looked up at Linda. She was watching me with concern, probably worried I was going to do something violent. "I don't know," I said honestly. "My advice? Talk to a lawyer before you confront her. Protect yourself financially." I nodded, though I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about Emma, about how this was going to destroy her world. About 20 years of marriage and trust and shared dreams, all of it gone. Thank you, I said, standing up. Jake, if you need anything else, I'll be fine. But I wasn't fine. I drove home in a daze, the photographs burning a hole in the passenger seat. Sarah's car was in the driveway, which meant she was home, probably getting ready for another late meeting at school. I sat in my truck for a long time trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to storm into the house and throw the photos at her feet, demand an explanation, scream at her for destroying our family. But another part of me, the part that had spent years fixing broken engines and solving complex problems, wanted to think this through. Plan it out. Make sure I got it right. I was still sitting there when Emma came out of the house. Dad? She walked over to my truck, looking worried. What are you doing? Just thinking. She studied my face, and I saw recognition dawn in her eyes. She knew, somehow she knew that I knew. Dad, Get in the truck, Em. She climbed into the passenger seat, carefully avoiding the manila envelope. How long have you known? I asked. Emma's face crumpled. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. How long? Since the beginning of the school year. I saw them together at school, and at first, I thought it was just teacher stuff, but then she started crying. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. I reached over and took her hand. It's not your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. Are you going to divorce her? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I don't know yet. I don't want our family to break up. I don't either, but some things, once they're broken, they can't be fixed. We sat in silence for a while, both of us crying. My 15-year-old daughter and I, mourning the death of our family. Dad, Emma said finally, what are you going to do? I looked at the photographs beside me, then at my daughter's tear-stained face. I'm going to figure out how to make this right. That night, I pretended to be asleep when Sarah came to bed. She'd gotten home at 11:30, smelling like she'd showered somewhere else, probably at the motel. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, trying to remember when things had started to go wrong between us. When had we stopped talking? When had we become strangers sharing a bed? Or maybe the better question was, when had I started taking her for granted? Because that's what I'd done, wasn't it? I'd gotten comfortable, complacent. I'd assumed that 20 years of marriage was enough to keep us together, that love was something that maintained itself without effort. I'd been wrong, but that didn't excuse what she'd done. Cheating was a choice, not an accident. She could have talked to me about her unhappiness. She could have suggested counseling or therapy or a trial separation. Instead, she'd chosen to sneak around behind my back with Emma's English teacher. The next morning was Sunday. Sarah made pancakes, humming in the kitchen like she didn't have a care in the world. Emma picked at her food, shooting nervous glances between us. I thought we might go to the park today, Sarah suggested. Have a family day. I've got things to do, I said. What things? Just things. Sarah frowned. Jake, you've been acting strange lately. Are you okay? The irony was almost funny. She was asking if I was okay while she was having an affair. I'm fine, I said. After breakfast, I went to my workshop in the garage. It was my sanctuary, filled with tools and spare parts and half-finished projects. I sat at my workbench and tried to think clearly about what came next. I could confront Sarah directly, but that would just lead to denials and excuses. I could file for divorce immediately, but that seemed too drastic. There had to be another option. Emma appeared in the doorway, looking hesitant. Dad? Can we talk? Of course! She came in and sat on an old stool next to my workbench. I keep thinking this is all my fault somehow. Why would you think that? Because I knew and I didn't tell you, because I like Mr. Blake as a teacher, and I didn't want him to get in trouble, because maybe if I'd been a better daughter, Mom wouldn't have... Stop. I turned to face her fully. Emma, listen to me. This has nothing to do with you. This is between your mother and me and the choices she made. You are not responsible for her actions. But I could have told you sooner. And put yourself in the middle of an adult problem? No. You handled it exactly the way you should have. Emma was quiet for a moment. Dad, do you hate her? The question caught me off guard. Did I hate Sarah? I was angry, betrayed, devastated. But hate? No, I said finally. I don't hate her. I'm disappointed in her. I'm hurt by what she's done. But I don't hate her. Good, Emma said. Because even if you get divorced, she's still my mom. Smart kid, smarter than both her parents, apparently. Emma, Whatever happens between your mother and me, we both love you. That will never change. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. After she left, I sat in the garage for a long time, thinking about love and betrayal and the complicated mess that adult relationships could become. By evening, I'd made a decision. I wasn't ready to confront Sarah yet, but I was ready to start taking control of the situation. I called Linda Hartley. I need you to keep watching them, I said. I want to know everything. Where they go, what they do, how often they meet. Jake, you already have enough evidence for a divorce. This isn't about divorce anymore. This is about understanding what I'm dealing with. Linda was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? I don't know yet, but when I figure it out, I want to make sure I'm ready. The next few weeks passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Sarah continued her affair, thinking she was being discreet. Emma continued to struggle with the secret she'd been carrying, and I continued to gather information, building a complete picture of my wife's betrayal. Linda's reports were thorough and devastating. Sarah and Blake met at least 3 times a week. They'd developed an elaborate system of coded text messages. They'd even started talking about leaving their respective spouses and starting a new life together. That last detail hit me harder than anything else. It was one thing to have an affair. It was another thing entirely to plan a future with someone else while still married to me. I started making plans of my own. I opened a separate bank account and began transferring money. I met with a divorce attorney and learned about my options. I even started looking at apartments, just in case, but mostly I watched and waited and tried to figure out the best way to handle the situation. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Jake, Sarah said one evening over dinner, the school is having a fall festival next Saturday, fundraiser for new textbooks. I was hoping you'd come. I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd loved for 20 years, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Will I get to meet Emma's teachers? I asked. Of course. That's the whole point. Emma nearly choked on her food. She knew exactly what I was thinking. Sounds great, I said. I'd love to meet Mr. Blake. Sarah's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Just for a second, but I caught it. I'm sure he'd like to meet you too. The rest of the week crawled by. Sarah seemed nervous, probably wondering if I suspected anything. Emma was practically vibrating with anxiety. And I spent every free moment planning what I was going to do, because I'd finally figured it out. I knew exactly how I wanted to handle David Blake. Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of wind that cuts through your jacket and makes you want to stay inside. The fall festival was being held in the school gymnasium, with booths selling crafts and baked goods and chances to win prizes. Sarah had gotten there early to help set up. Emma and I arrived together around noon, and I could see the tension in my daughter's shoulders as we walked through the doors. Dad, she said quietly, please don't do anything crazy. I'm not going to do anything crazy. Promise? I looked down at her worried face. I promise I won't embarrass you. That seemed to satisfy her, at least partially. The gymnasium was crowded with families and teachers and school board members. I scanned the room until I found Sarah at the book sale booth, laughing with a group of other women. And there, at the ring toss game, was David Blake. He was everything the photographs had suggested and more. Tall, confident, charming. He was running the game with easy humor, making jokes with the kids and flirting mildly with their mothers. I watched him for several minutes, studying the way he moved, the way he talked, the way he commanded attention without seeming to try. He was good. I had to give him that. Jake. Sarah appeared at my elbow, smiling brightly. I'm so glad you came. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. She led me around the gymnasium, making introductions to teachers and administrators and parents I'd never met. Everyone was friendly and welcoming, probably thinking I was just another devoted father supporting his local school. If only they knew. And this, Sarah said, leading me toward the ring toss game, is Emma's English teacher, David Blake. David, this is my husband, Jake. Blake turned toward us with a smile that faltered slightly when he saw me. Up close, he was even more impressive. And younger, and better looking. No wonder Sarah had fallen for him. Mr. Sullivan, Blake said, extending his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you. Emma speaks about you all the time. His handshake was firm and confident. The handshake of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. All good things, I hope, I said. Absolutely. She says you're a master mechanic, that you can fix anything. I like to think so. We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. Blake probably saw a middle-aged blue-collar worker with grease under his fingernails and no college degree. Someone beneath his notice, beneath his concern. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Well, Blake said, turning back to the ring toss game, I should get back to this. Nice meeting you, Mr. Sullivan. Likewise. Sarah tugged on my arm, leading me away. Isn't he nice? Emma just loves his class. I'll bet she does, I thought. And I'll bet you love him too. I spent the rest of the festival observing, watching Sarah and Blake try to act normal around each other, watching Emma struggle with the weight of her secret, watching the other parents and teachers interact like one big happy family. It was a masterful performance from all involved. If I hadn't known better, I would have seen exactly what they wanted me to see. A dedicated teacher, a devoted wife, and a happy family. But I did know better, and now I had a plan. The following Monday, I took a personal day from work and drove to the school district's administrative offices. I told them I was concerned about the quality of education at Westfield High and wanted to review the teacher evaluation process. It was a fishing expedition, but it paid off. I learned that David Blake was up for tenure review this year. His file was mostly clean, but there were a few complaints from parents about inappropriate relationships with some of the mothers. Interesting. I also learned that the school had a strict policy about relationships between staff members and parents. Any such relationship had to be disclosed to the administration and could result in disciplinary action. More interesting still, that afternoon, I drove to the Daily Grind and waited. Sure enough, at 3:30, Sarah and Blake arrived for their usual coffee date. I watched them through the window, holding hands and gazing into each other's eyes like teenagers. They had no idea they were being watched, no idea that their perfect little secret was about to explode. I waited until they left, then went inside and talked to the barista. Those two come in here a lot, I said casually. Are they regulars? Oh yeah, the young woman said. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past few months. Cute couple, very much in love. They do seem happy together. It's nice to see, especially since they're both going through divorces. I felt my blood pressure spike. Divorces? Well, she is. She talks about it sometimes. Her husband doesn't understand her, doesn't appreciate her. You know how it is. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, I know exactly how it is. That evening, I sat in my workshop, staring at the evidence I'd collected. Photographs, credit card statements, witness testimony. Everything I needed to destroy both of them. But I wasn't ready yet. I wanted more. The next few days, I became a different person. Sarah noticed the change immediately. Jake, you seem different, she said over breakfast. Happier somehow. Just feeling good about things, I said. About us. She looked confused, probably because I hadn't shown interest in us for months. Really? Yeah. I've been thinking we should try harder. Maybe go on a date this weekend. Emma nearly spit out her orange juice. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. A date? Sarah asked. Why not? When's the last time we went out? Just the two of us. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw her expression change. Blake, probably, wondering why she was talking about dates with her husband. That sounds nice, she said carefully. But I've got that conference this weekend. What conference? The State Education Conference in Portland. I told you about it. She hadn't told me about it because there was no conference. She was planning a weekend getaway with Blake. Right, I said. I forgot. Maybe the weekend after. Sure. But I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was trying to figure out why I was suddenly interested in our marriage. After they left for school, I called Linda. I need you to follow them to Portland this weekend, I said. Jake, what are you planning? I'm not sure yet. But when I figure it out, I want to be ready. Friday afternoon, I helped Sarah pack for her conference. She was nervous, probably worried that I was getting suspicious. You sure you'll be okay with Emma? She asked. We'll be fine. Have fun at your conference. She kissed me goodbye, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She looked guilty and scared and desperate all at the same time. But then I remembered the barista's words. Her husband doesn't understand her, doesn't appreciate her. My sympathy evaporated. Saturday morning, Linda called with an update. They're at the Riverside Inn, she said. Room 237, registered as Mr. and Mrs. Blake. Perfect, keep watching them. I hung up and turned to Emma, who was eating cereal at the kitchen counter. Pack a bag, I said. We're going to Portland. Dad, what are you doing? Something I should have done weeks ago. The drive to Portland took 3 hours. Emma spent most of it trying to talk me out of whatever I was planning. Dad, please don't do anything you'll regret. I won't regret this. What about Mom? What about our family? Your mother made her choice, Em. Now I'm making mine. We checked into a hotel across the street from the Riverside Inn. I could see Blake's blue Subaru in the parking lot. Now what? Emma asked. Now we wait. We didn't have to wait long. At 6 o'clock, Sarah and Blake emerged from the hotel, dressed for dinner. They looked happy and relaxed, like a couple on their honeymoon. I watched them drive away, then grabbed my phone. What are you doing? Emma asked. Calling the front desk. The desk clerk answered on the second ring. Riverside Inn, how can I help you? Hi, I'm trying to reach my wife. She's staying in room 237, registered under Blake. One moment, please. There was a pause. Then, I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out room information for security reasons. Of course, my mistake. Could you connect me to room 237? Certainly. The phone rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Sarah's voice. Hi, you've reached Sarah and David. We can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and we'll get back to you. Sarah and David, like they were already married. I hung up and looked at Emma. Did you hear that? She nodded, tears in her eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, sweetheart. Be angry. Your mother is throwing away 20 years of marriage for a man she's known for 4 months. We spent the evening in the hotel restaurant, watching the entrance to the Riverside Inn. Sarah and Blake returned around 10 o'clock, laughing and holding hands. They look happy, Emma said quietly. They do. Does that make you happy or sad? I thought about it. Both. What are you going to do? I looked at my daughter, this smart, thoughtful girl who'd been forced to carry the weight of adult secrets. I'm going to make sure they remember this weekend for the rest of their lives. Sunday morning, I called the front desk again. Riverside Inn, how can I help you? Hi, I need to speak with the manager. I have some concerns about one of your guests. What kind of concerns? I believe you have a guest who's impersonating someone else. A woman registered as Mrs. Blake, but she's actually Mrs. Sullivan. She's my wife, and she's having an affair. There was a long pause. Sir, I'm not sure we can... I have documentation. Photos, credit card statements, phone records. I can prove she's my wife, and I can prove she's registered under a false name. Another pause. Can you hold, please? 5 minutes later, the manager came on the line. Mr. Sullivan, this is James Morton, the hotel manager. I understand you have some concerns about one of our guests. That's right. My wife is registered in room 237 as Mrs. Blake. She's having an affair with the man she's with. I have evidence. Sir, I'm not sure what you want us to do about this. I want you to ask them to leave immediately. Mr. Sullivan, we can't evict guests based on marital disputes. You can evict them for fraud. She used a false name to register. Morton was quiet for a moment. If you can provide documentation proving the guest is your wife and that she registered under a false name, we'll look into it. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I grabbed the manila envelope with all of Linda's evidence and headed for the door. Dad, wait, Emma said. What are you doing? What I should have done months ago. The Riverside Inn was a nice place, the kind of hotel that catered to romantic getaways and business travelers. The lobby was all marble and brass, with soft music playing and fresh flowers on every table. James Morton was waiting for me at the front desk, a thin man in his 50s with worried eyes. Mr. Sullivan? That's me. I opened the envelope and spread the contents across the desk. Photos of Sarah and Blake together, credit card statements showing her real name, her driver's license, which I'd copied from her purse. Morton studied the evidence carefully. This is quite thorough. I'm a thorough guy. Mr. Sullivan, I have to ask, what do you hope to accomplish here? I looked at him for a moment, trying to find the right words. I want my wife to understand that actions have consequences, that she can't just lie and cheat and think there won't be any fallout. Morton nodded slowly. I see. Well, technically, she did register under a false name, which violates our terms of service. So you'll ask them to leave? I'll ask them to come down to the lobby and explain the discrepancy. It wasn't exactly what I'd hoped for, but it would have to do. Room 237, Morton said into his phone. This is the front desk. Could you and your companion come down to the lobby, please? There's been an issue with your registration. He hung up and looked at me. They'll be down in a few minutes. I took a seat in the lobby where I could see the elevators. Emma sat beside me, looking like she wanted to disappear. Dad, maybe we should go. No, we're staying. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Sarah and Blake stepped out. They were both dressed casually, probably planning to check out and drive home. Sarah saw me first. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Jake? She said, walking over slowly. What are you doing here? Hello, Sarah. David? Blake looked confused. Mr. Sullivan? How did you know you were here? It wasn't hard to figure out. Sarah was staring at me like I was a stranger. Jake, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But first, you need to talk to the manager. There seems to be some confusion about your registration. Morton stepped forward. Mrs. Sullivan, is it? There's a discrepancy in your registration. You're listed as Mrs. Blake, but according to the documentation Mr. Sullivan has provided, your legal name is Sarah Sullivan. Sarah looked back and forth between Morton and me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Morton said, but I'm afraid you'll need to re-register with your correct information, or we'll have to ask you to leave. Now wait just a minute, Blake said, stepping forward. This is harassment. I stood up, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt completely calm. No, Mr. Blake, this is consequences. You've been sleeping with my wife for 4 months. You've helped her lie to me, to our daughter, to everyone who knows us. You've talked about leaving your respective spouses and starting a new life together. Well, congratulations. Your new life starts now. Blake's face flushed red. You have no right. I have every right. She's my wife. She doesn't want to be your wife anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't let it show. Then she should have divorced me before she started sleeping with you. Sarah finally found her voice. Jake, please. Can we talk about this privately? We're way past private conversations, Sarah. You made this public when you registered as Mrs. Blake? She started crying then, big ugly sobs that echoed through the marble lobby. Other guests were starting to stare. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. How did you mean for it to happen? She didn't answer, just kept crying. Morton cleared his throat. I'm going to have to ask you to settle this outside. You're disturbing other guests. Of course, I said. Come on, Emma. I started walking toward the exit, my daughter beside me. After a moment, I heard footsteps following us. Outside, in the parking lot, Sarah grabbed my arm. Jake, please. We need to talk. We will, at home, with lawyers present. Don't do this. Don't destroy our family. I turned to face her, this woman I'd loved for 20 years. I didn't destroy our family, Sarah. You did. The drive home was silent except for the sound of Emma crying in the passenger seat. I felt empty, hollowed out like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but echoes. It was over. 20 years of marriage, finished in a hotel lobby in Portland. Sarah's car was in our driveway when we got home, which meant she'd driven straight back after we left. Blake's Subaru was there too. Dad, Emma said as we sat in my truck. What happens now? I don't know, sweetheart. But whatever happens, we'll get through it together. We walked into the house to find Sarah and Blake sitting at the kitchen table, talking in low voices. They looked up when we entered, and I saw guilt and defiance warring in Sarah's eyes. Jake, she said, standing up, we need to talk. Yes, we do, but not with him here. Blake started to protest, but Sarah put a hand on his arm. David, maybe you should go. I'm not leaving you alone with him, I almost laughed. You think I'm going to hurt her? After 20 years of marriage? I think you're angry and unpredictable. You're right, I am angry, but I'm not unpredictable. I'm very, very predictable. I work hard, I pay my bills, I love my family, and I keep my promises. All the things you apparently find boring. Blake's face reddened. Sarah deserves better than this. Better than what? A husband who loves her? A stable home? A man who's never cheated on her or lied to her or broken his marriage vows? A man who sees her for who she really is. I looked at Sarah, standing there between us like a prize to be won. And who is she really, David? Because the woman I married would never do what she's done. The woman I married had integrity, honor. The woman I married understood that promises matter. People change, Jake, Sarah said quietly. Yes, they do. But they don't have to become liars and cheaters in the process. Blake stood up. I think I should go. Good idea, I said. He kissed Sarah on the cheek, whispered something in her ear, and left. The sound of his car starting seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet kitchen. Sarah and I stared at each other across the table. 20 years of marriage and we'd become strangers. What do you want me to say? She asked finally. I want you to tell me why. I don't know why. That's not good enough, Sarah. Our daughter has been carrying your secret for months. She's been torn apart watching you lie to me every day. The least you can do is give us both an honest explanation. Sarah sat down heavily, looking older than her 35 years. I felt invisible, she said, like I disappeared. Like I was just Jake's wife and Emma's mother, but not Sarah anymore. So you had an affair? I didn't plan it, it just happened. Affairs don't just happen. You made choices. Every day for 4 months, you made the choice to betray our marriage. She was crying again. I know it was wrong, but Jake, we haven't been happy for years. We've been going through the motions, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. So, we should have gone to counseling. We should have talked about it. We should have tried to fix it. Would you have? If I'd come to you and said I was unhappy, would you have changed anything? The question hit me harder than I expected. Would I have changed? Would I have paid more attention, worked less, been more romantic? Probably not. I guess we'll never know, I said. Emma had been standing in the doorway, listening. Now she came into the kitchen and sat down across from her mother. Mom, she said quietly, I need you to know something. What you did, it didn't just hurt Dad. It hurt me too. Every day I had to look at him and know something he didn't know. Every day I had to watch you lie to his face. Do you have any idea what that was like? Sarah reached for Emma's hand, but Emma pulled away. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Mom. Sorry doesn't take back all the lies. Sarah looked at both of us, her husband and daughter, and I saw the moment she realized what she'd lost. Not just a marriage, not just a family, but the respect of the two people who mattered most to her. What happens now? She asked. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. Now you pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. Tomorrow we call lawyers. And eventually we figure out how to divide 20 years of life into 2 separate pieces. Jake, please, can't we try to work this out? I looked at her for a long moment. You registered at that hotel as Mrs. Blake. You told the barista at the coffee shop that you were getting divorced. You've been planning a future with another man while sleeping in my bed. Tell me, Sarah, what exactly is there to work out? She didn't have an answer for that. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and started gathering her things. Clothes, shoes, jewelry, books, the detritus of a shared life. When I came back downstairs with her suitcases, Sarah was still sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Your things are by the door, I said. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I do love you, Jake. I never stopped loving you. Then you have a funny way of showing it. She stood up slowly, like an old woman. Where will I go? I assume you'll go to Blake's place, since you're Mrs. Blake now. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Can I call Emma? She's your daughter. You can call her whenever you want. But Sarah? Don't expect things to go back to normal anytime soon. She's 15 years old, and you just destroyed her sense of security. It's going to take time for her to trust you again. Sarah nodded, tears flowing freely now. She picked up her suitcases and walked to the door. Jake, she said, turning back one last time, I really am sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't change anything. After she left, Emma and I sat in the living room, both of us shell-shocked. Is she coming back? Emma asked. I don't know. Do you want her to come back? Emma thought about it. Not right now. Maybe not ever. I love her, but I don't trust her anymore. That's understandable. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Are you okay? I considered the question. Was I okay? My wife had just walked out on our 20-year marriage. My family was destroyed. My life, as I'd known it, was over. But for the first time in months, I wasn't carrying the weight of secrets and suspicions. I wasn't wondering where Sarah was or what she was doing. I wasn't pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Yeah, I said, putting my arm around my daughter. I think I'm going to be okay. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Sarah moved in with Blake, who'd somehow managed to keep his job despite the scandal. Emma spent weekends with her mother, but she'd chosen to live with me full-time. I never did get my dramatic confrontation with Blake, never got to humiliate him the way I'd planned. In the end, it turned out that public embarrassment in a hotel lobby was enough. He'd gotten what he wanted, my wife, but he'd also gotten the reputation that came with it. The whispers, the gossip, the knowledge that everyone in town knew exactly what kind of man he was. Some revenge is subtle that way. As for Sarah and me, we were cordial but distant. We talked about Emma's schedule and school events and practical matters, but we never talked about us. There wasn't really an us to talk about anymore. Emma was doing better too. She'd started seeing a counselor, and slowly, she was learning to trust again. Not her mother, not yet, but the idea that the adults in her life could be honest with each other. I was sitting in my workshop one evening, working on an old motorcycle engine, when she came out to join me. "Dad," she said, settling onto her usual stool, "do you ever regret it, the way you handled things with Mom?" I thought about it. No, I think I handled it the only way I could. Do you miss her? I miss who she used to be. But the woman who walked out of here 3 months ago, I don't think I ever really knew her. Emma nodded. I feel the same way. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, father and daughter, rebuilding something that had been broken. Outside, it was starting to rain, the kind of steady autumn rain that washes everything clean and makes you grateful to be inside, warm and safe. I looked at Emma, bent over her homework at my workbench, and realized something. We were going to be all right. Different, but all right. Some things, once they're broken, can't be fixed. But sometimes, what you build from the pieces is stronger than what you started with.